My family was known as the B. Williams Dynasty in Boston's medical community. Their empire was St. Mary Memorial Hospital, a majestic building overlooking the Charles River with a grace that seemed to embody both tradition and progress. Since its founding in 1890, it had been the crown jewel of New England's medical care, ranking among the nation's top 10 in cardiac surgery. Even its architecture, a seamless marriage of neoclassical stonework and gleaming modern glass, told the story of power rooted in history yet always reaching toward innovation. At the head of it all stood my mother, Margaret Williams, as chairperson of St. Mary. She was revered and feared in equal measure. With a single decision, she could secure or ruin a career. One of her carefully measured smiles could disarm colleagues, but behind it always lurked cold calculation. That was her true nature, benevolence painted in strokes of control. Every Sunday, our family gathered for dinner in the Back Bay Mansion, an ornate brownstone where chandeliers dripped with crystal light and marble floors echoed with footsteps. To outsiders, it was the picture of elegance, the kind of setting that belonged in glossy magazines. But for me, those dinners were never a joy. They were hours of endurance, a stage where my mother praised her chosen daughter while I played the silent servant. Catherine, tonight's wine should be Chateau Margaux, vintage 2000. She ordered one evening without glancing up from her seat. I gave the smallest of nods, then slipped away to the cellar. It had been 3 years since I became a live-in worker in my own family's house. Despite graduating with honors and building a career as a pharmaceutical researcher, I had been reduced to the role of housemaid, quietly obeying commands. Even as I walked down the stone steps, I was careful not to let my footsteps echo too loudly. My uniform was simple, a white blouse and gray skirt. My sister Ashley, by contrast, glittered in Chanel tweed, Hermes scarves, and Cartier jewelry. She was both dermatologist and social media star, a darling of Boston's elite. Her followers adored her curated life of high-end restaurants, yacht weekends, and, behind the scenes, glimpses of her medical practice. Of course, I never appeared in those perfect posts. Hey, Ashley's sharp voice cut into the air. You're not planning to wear that to dinner tonight, are you? At least tie a Hermes scarf. I'll change into my uniform for serving, I replied quietly. Satisfied, she returned to photographing her reflection, angling her phone to catch the sparkle of her bracelet. My father, George, the hospital's planning director, rarely spoke at all. He lived for golf and luxury cars, treating family conflict as though it didn't exist. His collection of Mercedes S-Class vehicles seemed more precious to him than any of us. At the table, he nodded when my mother spoke and occasionally forced a smile, but his silence had long since become a form of betrayal. Sunday dinners followed a script. Mother's praises poured down on Ashley like champagne. Ashley's patient list is expanding beautifully. The governor's wife even booked a consultation. Did you see her post from the yacht club? The engagement is remarkable. Meanwhile, I hovered near the sideboard, pouring wine and clearing plates as if I were invisible. My accomplishments, a published research paper, a clinical trial I coordinated, an award from my company, were never mentioned. That night, however, everything shifted. The table was set with precision, silverware gleaming under the chandelier, the white cloth crisp as new snow. Outside, the Charles River caught the last glow of sunset, its surface rippling like molten gold. Dinner was elaborate: white truffle risotto, poached lobster, prime beef. The air was heavy with the fragrance of luxury. Chateau Lafite Rothschild, 1986. My mother instructed the sommelier with a flick of her hand. Ashley scrolled her iPad, smirking as she prepared to unveil something. When she spoke, her voice carried the same rehearsed brightness she used for her followers. Look at these, our cruise pictures. Image after image filled the screen. My parents in evening attire at the captain's dinner, Ashley lounging by a private pool, family portraits on deck against Caribbean sunsets. A perfect holiday, a perfect family, except for one glaring omission: me. What trip? The words escaped my lips before I could restrain them. The air turned brittle. Knives paused mid-cut. Even the champagne bubbles seemed to stop rising. Ashley lowered her iPad slowly, her lips curving into a cruel smile. Well, she said, savoring the moment, you don't have a family, do you? You're just our housekeeper. My parents laughed softly, as though the remark were a witty joke, but their laughter echoed in my ears like glass breaking. "Oh, and when Mom introduced us to the captain," Ashley added, twisting the knife, "she said she had 2 daughters. Funny, isn't it? Guess she wasn't counting you." I clenched the edge of the tablecloth, my knuckles white against the linen. At that moment, something inside me shifted. I stood, smoothing my skirt, and calmly said, "Then I'll call my family." The words cut through the room like a blade. Ashley's face paled. My mother's eyes narrowed. My father drowned his discomfort in wine. They thought I was bluffing, spiraling into one of my delusions. But then, the heavy oak doors opened. A sound of heels echoed across the marble floor, each step sharp, deliberate, commanding. The crimson soles of Christian Louboutins glinted as a figure entered the room. Elizabeth Montgomery. The room seemed to bow to her presence, dressed in a navy Tom Ford pantsuit, every line of fabric tailored to perfection. She exuded quiet authority. A Van Cleef Arpels necklace rested against her blouse, its sparkle understated but impossible to ignore. She crossed the room with elegance, her eyes fixed on me. "Sorry to keep you waiting, Catherine," she said softly. Her voice carried warmth and power all at once. Ashley froze, her phone slipping slightly in her hand. My mother's grip tightened on her glass until it nearly cracked. My father dropped his napkin as he scrambled to his feet. I simply breathed, for the first time in years, without fear. Agitation. The word itself seemed to pulse in the air, unspoken but heavy. The crystal chandelier shimmered above, scattering light into fractured patterns that danced across the crimson carpet. My heart was racing. Then Elizabeth stepped closer. Her hand settled gently on my shoulder, a touch so warm it felt as though it melted the ice that had been frozen inside me for years. My body, once tense, loosened ever so slightly under her presence. "Actually," Elizabeth said, her voice calm but resonant, "I have an important announcement." Her words, though softly delivered, landed like a hammer in the hushed dining room, every fork stilled, every breath caught. "Chairperson Margaret." Elizabeth turned her gaze to my mother, who sat rigid at the head of the table. "Are you aware of the decision made at the recent board meeting?" Mother blinked once, her diamond earrings swaying with the slight motion. Her voice, usually sharp and composed, faltered. "What do you mean?" Ashley opened her mouth, ready to interject with her usual smugness, but Elizabeth's glance silenced her instantly. It was as though the weight of years of authority condensed into a single look. "I have been nominated," Elizabeth continued, her chin lifted with quiet pride, "as the next chairperson candidate for St. Mary Memorial Hospital." The room gasped, not aloud, but through the subtle shifts of bodies, the sudden sharp intake of breath from father, the way Ashley's manicured fingers clenched her wineglass too tightly. "You must be joking," Mother hissed at last, leaning forward. My surgery success rate is 98%. I perform over 400 surgeries annually. I bring this hospital over 10 million in revenue a year." Her words tumbled out, desperate, defensive. But Elizabeth did not flinch. The chandelier's glow carved her profile into something resolute, almost sculptural. "And yet," she replied evenly, "the board still chose me." Why here, today?" Mother demanded, her voice trembling despite her attempt at control. Elizabeth's hand slipped into mine. That single gesture silenced the pounding of my heart. In her touch, years of secrecy and fear unraveled. "Because Catherine is my partner." The words detonated in the room like a storm breaking. Ashley's phone, which had been live streaming for her followers, abruptly froze. On the screen, only the words "connection error" glared back, as if mocking her. Elizabeth's voice softened, but it carried to every corner of the room. "We met 2 years ago at a medical conference. I was captivated by her research presentation. Catherine's work has the potential to transform cardiac surgery success rates. But more than that, her compassion, her strength, those captured my heart." My breath caught. I squeezed her hand, whispering hoarsely, "You too, you mean?" "Yes," Elizabeth said, meeting my eyes. "I was raised in a Christian home. For years, I denied myself. But when I met you, Catherine, I found the courage to be honest about who I am." Father's voice broke in, hoarse and disbelieving. This is impossible. Elizabeth turned her gaze back to my mother. Chairperson Margaret, I know everything Catherine has endured in this household. Forced into servitude, excluded from family vacations, erased from photographs, from social media, from acknowledgement. Her voice hardened, like steel wrapped in velvet. Is this the image of a leader's family? Is this how Mary's dynasty treats one of its own? Ashley's hand shook so violently that her phone slipped and clattered onto the table. She fumbled to recover it, her carefully constructed image crumbling before my eyes. Mother attempted a brittle smile. Oh, Elizabeth, surely this is just a misunderstanding. We're family. If we sit down together. Elizabeth cut across her words like a blade. No, this isn't misunderstanding. It's cruelty, and I will not allow Catherine to bear it alone any longer. Her arm encircled me, drawing me close. Your plan to use Catherine as a pawn to lure me into the family's orbit, it backfired. Because I did come closer, but not for the reasons you calculated. I fell in love with her. Mother's lips tightened. You're throwing away your career for this? Elizabeth's eyes blazed. I built my career on my ability, not on bending to your control. And if it means choosing between the chairperson's seat and Catherine, I will choose her every time. In fact, Brigham and Women's Hospital has already extended me an offer. That name hung in the air like a thunderclap. Even Mother paled at it, the rival institution, a fortress of prestige in Boston medicine. My voice rose for the first time in years, trembling but resolute. Mom, I remember everything, the words, the indifference, the coldness. I endured it all for this moment, and now, I won't be silent anymore. Ashley's fingers failed her, the screen still flashing connection error. Her world of flawless posts was collapsing. And then, to my shock, Father spoke. His voice was low, weary. That's enough. We all turned. His eyes were closed. His shoulders slumped. We lost sight of what mattered. We've destroyed our own family. Mother sank back into her chair, stricken. Ashley stared at her useless phone, lips trembling. Elizabeth's hand tightened on mine. At the threshold of the private dining room, she paused. Her voice, calm and unshaken, carried scripture that seemed to cleanse the poisoned air. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things, and love never fails. Hand in hand, we stepped into the night. The Charles River shimmered beyond the glass, its lights dancing like blessings on the water. For the first time in my life, I wasn't leaving as a servant, but as someone loved and free.